Depending on how young or old you are, you may or may not remember a time when Quake was one of the biggest esports games around. Duel, which just saw two players face off against each other in a 1v1, was the pinnacle of skill. Not only did you need to have pinpoint aim, but your movement had to be perfect. And if that wasn't enough, these players learnt all the things on the map as well, like pickups, the red armor, the green armor, the timings. You needed to be working out where the other guy was. You needed to shoot him and in your head be moving towards the pickups just as they spawned to control them. There was a lot more to it than it looked sometimes from the outset. Quake still, believe it or not, has competitions going to this day. QuakeCon has run every year since 1996, but Quake Live hasn't really propelled the game towards the legacy that it once had. But now perhaps Quake Champions could do that. Quake Champions is a new take on the Quake franchise, but it still holds true to the style of the older games. It's still based on great aim and the movement is the key, and some of the old maps are still there in a remastered form. But this time, each character that you choose to play as, or champion let's call them, have their own abilities that can be used. In fact, Bethesda, who are publishing the game now, plans to host a Quake Champions tournament at this year's QuakeCon, inviting some of the best Quake players around, and that could be very interesting to watch. But the question is, do we need another game based around heroes and champions? And well, this is Quake. Does it even need that style of game? Well, honestly, from what I've briefly played and seen, the champion system doesn't overshadow the core gameplay, and I think it just adds to it. Some characters have abilities that sure may be useful in some circumstances, but I think when the good players get used to the meta, I think the abilities are going to take a back seat, and the emphasis comes back to raw skill. Anarchy, for instance, has a health injection that will heal him when he's in a bit of a jam, but he's also a relatively low health character, so it does balance out. Fast characters will tend to have lower health, and slower characters will have a bit more health, as you would expect. We still haven't been shown all of the characters just yet, some of them are still yet to be revealed, but expect some old faces to return from the original Quake games. The core gameplay then, I think it's very good. And the most important thing in my eyes is that it feels like Quake, at least to me. Sure, the champion system is a little bit different, but the core gameplay still feels like Quake. I can still rocket jump or strafe jump around to get maximum speed. And when I say I can, I mean it's possible. I'm certainly no Quake pro when it comes to movement, but I love the game nonetheless. You're going to find similar weapons, rocket gun, lightning gun, railgun, and similar pickups like quad damage, green armor, and standard health pickups. No grenade launcher though currently. And when you kill an enemy, they'll also drop a few armor shards that can be important to pick up to gain a few armor points back. That's also something important to remember. You don't start a life with full armor, you've got to pick it up as you go, and it can be the real difference between surviving a direct hit and not. Some champions have more armor capacity than others, but they usually start with 25 armor, but some start with 50. Now when this game releases, it will actually be free to play. Sort of. You can also buy it, which may sound confusing. Essentially, you can either buy it and get access to all of the champions, or you can play it for free and have access to the base champion and use in-game currency to work towards the rest. You can actually use in-game currency to gain a champion for a small amount of time, currently 1 day. There's also tons of cosmetic items from armor shaders, headgear, and even old school weapon models from Quake 2 and Quake 3 that you can obtain to replace the shiny new gun models if nostalgia is your thing. All of these items come from a mixture of in-game currency, real money, and from loot boxes. Yep, every game nowadays seems to have these, and Quake is no exception. Loot boxes will be dropped after games, open them up and you'll get some sort of cosmetic item. If you get one of the top tier crates, you can also get a legendary champion from them directly. So what about game modes? Well, currently there's Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, and also Duel, a new take on the classic esports mode. As well as that, there are some rumblings in the community of a team-based esports mode coming in the future. I'm pretty interested to see what that could be, but for now though, back to Duel. And as I said, Duel of course pits two players against each other in a 1v1 scenario, and it takes full advantage of the new champion aspect of Quake Champions. At the start of a duel, both players pick 3 champions from all of the ones available to them. One thing to bear in mind though is that if you don't have 3 champions, you cannot play Duel. So if you haven't purchased the game fully, and you haven't bought or rented, for want of a better term, any in-game champions, then you won't be able to play this game mode. They don't like the term rent, I think. You simply gain access for a small amount of time, but well, renting I think is just an easier term. You have to have up to 3 owned or rented champions to start a game. Once each player has picked 3 champions, the duel will then start, and when one player dies, that champion is then lost and they proceed on to their next chosen champion. And of course, once one player loses all of their champions, the round is lost in a best of 3 system. But I imagine that could be made into a higher number count for big tournament games, because if you've ever watched a competitive Quake match, it's very much cat and mouse and each kill counts. You get a certain amount of time and the player with the most amount of kills in that time wins the map, and in this system kills don't directly count really, so it's quite different. Only time will tell how it's going to work in a proper tournament. Now I've only played on 3 maps so far, or arenas as they're called. Blood Covenant is very recognisable as it's a remastered version of Quake 3's DM6 arena, or Campgrounds as I remember it as, and then we've got the Ruins of Sarnath, which has a massive chain down eyeball in the centre of it, and a more rustic map in the form of Burial Chamber. Visually I think they all look fantastic, classic Quake style, plenty of areas where movement can make a real difference. So overall my first impressions have been very positive of Quake Champions, and I really enjoyed the game so far. And if you've got a lot of love for arena shooters, then I think you'll like it too. Of course there's a worry that people that pay for champions will have an advantage over the people who simply play for free, but in my experience so far you gain plenty of in-game currency pretty fast to be able to rent out champions on a regular basis to experiment with and perhaps buy the ones that you really like playing. I think this game will live and die on its competitive angle though. If it pops off in a big way, it's going to carry the game forward, but it needs to be picked up, and I do have a fear that the time for arena shooters is unfortunately long gone, whether that's watching or playing them. I still love these type of games and have a blast with them personally, but FPS games have certainly moved on from when Quake was first popular. Quake Champions is currently in closed beta, and by the looks of it will remain there until they feel the game is finished, and I hope that Quake can get the resurgence that its history deserves. And that's all for today guys. I hope you enjoyed this early look and gameplay impressions of Quake Champions. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.